what's up, Los Angeles? Welcome to another episode of the Rams Skinny here on the LA Football Network, talking all things Los Angeles Rams. Unfortunately, got to talk about a loss, but it was a well-fought game for our Rams, dropping to the Ravens in overtime, 37-31. We'll get all into it, our takeaways, and what this means for the Rams moving forward. But first, my good friend, managing editor, beat writer for the Rams, the flowing locks, as you have now become known as, Ryan Skinny T. Anderson. What's up, brother?
I'm doing good, man. I was watching Green Bay Packers game last night, the Monday Night Football game. Wanted to check out Tommy DeVito, and they kept flashing up to the stands, showing his dad and his agent. And I was like, I know that guy. I know that agent. That
Wait,
agent
really?
has snubbed me twice.
Are you serious? You know him?
Yeah. So I was in Las Vegas. I was at the Shrine Bowl. And I wrote about this, a quarterback there, the Brown quarterback, E.J. Perry. I talked to one of the equipment guys that were catching the balls from the quarterbacks and warm-ups, and I was like, "Who's got the hottest hand?" He's like, E.J. Perry. I was like, "I'm going to write about this guy." So I wrote about him.
I remember that.
Contract. The agent reaches out to me. He says, "Hey, do you want to cover any of my other guys?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." We'll sit him down for an interview. Crickets. Ghosted me. So whatever,
Wow.
I saw him again outside the Luxor. I'm like, hey, let's do it. And he's like, yeah, okay. And then, nothing. And then, he reaches out to me when we're at Radio Row, and he's like, hey, I got some clients out at Radio Row for the Super Bowl. You want to interview? I'm like, yeah, send it me. Ghosted.
So I remember that happening. I didn't know it was that guy. I remember that happening at the Radio Row, because you're like, oh, I got this guy that's gonna, bring some, and then they just never showed up or anything. So dang, it's that guy, huh? That's crazy.
Yeah. And it's like, it's one thing to be ghosted by a nobody, but to be ghosted by Tommy DeVito's, Tommy Chop Suey or whatever we're calling him now. Yeah,
Tommy Cutlets. Yeah,
Tommy Cutlets. Yeah, to be ghosted by that guy. Now that's something I can be proud of.
Yeah, you definitely take that to the bank. Tommy Cutlets is eating at L'Antica de Pizzeria Michelle for free out here in LA after beating the Packers and keeping our Rams playoff hopes alive. But that's crazy. What a story. I didn't know it was him. So, I mean, that guy is the perfect agent for Tommy DeVito. Like, he just played into that. I mean, what a story. So fun.
Yeah.
Especially being an Italian myself. It's, I love it. I love it. But anyway, our Rams, first, I got to say this, 37-31. What was your score prediction? I believe you were like
37-32.
37-32. Look at that. It ended up being a high-scoring game in the mud. Didn't matter. So well done. I think last week I was only like a point or two off. This week you're a point or two off. So we need to start keeping score of this, of how these actually
we're gonna
work
write
out.
These down.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we were right. The Rams did lose. They probably should have won. We'll get into all of it. There was a ghost blocking in the back on that punt return for a touchdown, which you hate to see the Rams get kind of bamboozled by another call at the end of the game. But they had their opportunities to win on their own. They had the lead at the end of the game, gave up that game tying drive from Lamar and whatnot. So, but as we always do, big lens. What are your big takeaways from this one?
The Baltimore Ravens came into this game as a running team. And they just put it in the hands of Lamar and said, "Win this game for us," and he balled out. It's hard to stop an unmovable force with unstoppable force with an immovable object. And he was just that today. And it was a hard fought game. And they came in rushing the ball 28 times a game. If you take away his 8 scrambles, Lamar's 8 scrambles, they only ran it 18 times a game. He threw the ball 43 times. That's his career high. It ties his career high of passing attempts in a game. So, it's interesting that, a couple of weeks ago it came out that, the Rams are frustrated because teams are changing their game plan when they're facing them. And, and this is just another example of that. And I came in saying, the Ravens are a bullying team, that they're just a tough physical team. Well, they bullied the Rams team in a different way. They were going up over the top, trying, just challenging that young secondary over and over and over again, and they came up successful. He tried 9 passes of 20 yards or more,
Wow.
which he's only tried 53 on the season. 53 passes, and so that's like 20% of his season,
Yeah.
right there, in just this game alone. And just kind of changed their stripes and tried to make that secondary wrong as many times as they could, and they were able to do that.
Yeah, they certainly were. And, unfortunately, you mentioned that secondary. I think Jordan Fuller probably had his worst game of the season, maybe of his career in this one,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And just, what's unfortunate about how the defense played is, and I don't want fans to freak out, but I feel like overall they actually played fairly well, all things considered. They had the 2 busted plays in the opening frame. Obviously, one of those being Jordan Fuller cheating up and letting OBJ get in the end zone. But outside of that, they played pretty well in that first half. And then obviously at the end of the game, allowing them to get back in it. But that, I think, is the stuff that, that's wins football games, right? It's those little inches. It's that one broken play. They had 2 of them, 2 broken plays that go for touchdowns. Like, you clean that up. And that's been the thing with this team all season long, is just the consistency. Like, they are a good football team. Like, they can hang with anyone. They've done it every year, or every game, I should say. It's just cleaning up the consistency. And I think McVay even has said that many times in his press conferences, like, we just have to play consistent football week to week. And they haven't done that. And defensively, that reared its ugly head. Offensively, we saw it again in the play calling, right? Like 9 straight runs to open the game, and then 3 straight passes in the red zone. Like, why it was working so well? Why then do that in the red zone?
Well, you and I were texting back and forth. We were excited to see the 9 straight runs and just the efficiency of it all. And then they go and they end up having to kick a field goal at that point. And you think about that, that's one of those points in the game where you could just change everything around. You can really flip the script on this whole game if they score a touchdown there, which they should have. They were just driving down the field.
Yeah,
and yeah, they could not be stopped by this second best defense in the league. And then they just kind of let it get away from them and kick a field goal, and instead of getting 7 there, and seven wins the game there. That's the difference right there.
Yeah.
If you want to look at it that way.
Yeah. And obviously a lot of factors changed throughout the game, but yeah, in terms of just point total, that was the difference. So, I mean, that's just the overarching, I think, theme of this team. Like, we talk and joke all the time about better than expected, but the other t-shirt or theme could just be inconsistent. And what are you going to see week in and week out in terms of drive by drive even? Like, I think they're consistent in the sense that they're always competitive. They're always in these games. They battle, they fight, they claw. We get good play out of, specific players, but they haven't been consistent drive in and drive out, play in and play out. And that's what separates, Super Bowl contenders from playoff contenders, and playoff contenders from playoff pretenders. And, is this team truly a playoff contender, or are they a playoff pretender? And I believe they're a contender, but they have to be able to do it week in and week out. And again, this is a very good Ravens team. They're now, with the Dolphins lost, the number 1 team in the AFC at home in the rain, and the Rams took them to the brink in overtime. So I think there are no moral victories, but we can hang our hats on this and say, okay, they hung with the best. Neither me or you thought they were going to win this game, and yet they still were able to hang with them and battle. But when you watch the game unfold, it's similar to that Bengals game. It's similar to some of those games where it's like, yeah, but they should have probably won the game. They played well enough at times in this game to win the game, but then they were inconsistent and didn't play well enough at other times in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were saying it comes down to just a few small things here and there. And, you give up a 3rd and 17 after just a fantastic sack by Byron Young towards the end of the game there. And then they go down and score a touchdown there. And then a delay of game there. And I think that came in overtime. That's just, you can't let those things happen. And, but, on the whole, I think offensively, everything was clicking. Cooper Kupp was looking just fantastic. Puka Nacua, another solid game. Kyren Williams in the first half looking fantastic. And, in the second half, I understand why they got away from the running a little bit there because 5 negative plays, especially in just in that one drive. I think there were 3 just right there, and then a bunch of short runs. So I understand why they're getting away
They were
from
stacking
that.
the box at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, and it seemed like they were sniffing out. And I think I think Hunter Long in the running game is a much better blocker than Davis Allen. But Davis Allen just kind of putting a stamp on this game, scoring a touchdown, catching a couple of great passes. But again, you got a rookie out there in a high leverage situation, overtime, trying to drive down to just get you got to get 50 yards to kick a field goal at that point to win the game. He drops that pass, or doesn't come up with a catch anyway. I don't know if it was tallied as a drop or not, but but offensively, they come out of the game as the 3rd best offense by EPA per play. So this is what the Sean McVay offense, what we wanted to see all season long, and they did it against one of the best defenses in the league. So
exactly. And yeah, for all the criticism and the frustration and kind of getting away from things, like overall, this was a very good offensive display from this team. And as you said, going up against the number 2 defense in all of football at home in the rain. And, Matthew Stafford puts together another tremendous game. 294 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. You already mentioned all the other skill guys, but it still had injuries, right? Joe Noteboom had to go in after, and had to play, and you had Hunter Long ended up getting hurt. So then you get the Davis Allen game, and he kind of stepped up. So it's when we talk about inconsistency, what's hard to not be inconsistent is when you're relying on so many rookie and young players. Like that's going to come with the territory, right? Like you're literally 2 of your outside of Cooper Kupp. Your 3 best players on offense are a second-year, first-time starter in Kyren Williams, a rookie tight end in Davis Allen, and a rookie receiver in Puka Nacua. On defense, you're looking at rookies all across the board in Kobie Turner. And so we kind of knew there was going to be these inconsistencies. So we can sit here and say, and I'm not backpedaling, but we can sit here and say, like, man, they got to get consistent in order to be a contender, not a pretender. But at the same time, that's the expectation when you have so many rookies playing, and the fact that they're still playing this well, I think that constitutes how well of a job this coaching staff has done and how well these players are just buying in and playing. So yeah, it's a tough loss, but I felt much better about the loss probably than fans did, because I just think they played overall. We talked about some of the negatives, but overall I thought they played well against a Super Bowl favorite.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And I think that from a front office perspective anyway, you look at the numbers, that the amount of money that they did not spend this year in free agency and just cash spending overall, at the bottom of the league in both of those categories. And that what that signals is 2023 is going to be, from a front office perspective, I'm saying this, is going to be what it's going to be. Now from a coaching perspective and players, they all thought they were going to be really competitive and feisty this year. But you think about looking forward just to 2024, when they're actually going to be able to spend some money, draft some guys. This is going to be a really exciting team. I think this is going to be a competitive team, playoff team. You got some pieces in place. I've mentioned it over and over again. Another good game by Kobie Turner. Things are falling into place for this team to be a really fantastic 2024 team and a playoff team this year. So a lot of good things to hang your hat on there. So, they got beat by an MVP candidate in Lamar Jackson. You look at those pressures that Aaron Donald was getting on Lamar, and to Lamar's credit, he's poised in the pocket. He's looking downfield. He's not getting, happy feet. He's not like Gino, getting chased down by Aaron Donald saying, "Oh my God." He's saying, how can I make this play? And that's, he was really the big difference in the game. And if they were playing against a mortal quarterback, not a superhero at quarterback, they would have beaten this Ravens team hands down. You look at what, they did, for against Cleveland, where, Joe Flacco was looking good, but, he was he's a mortal quarterback, not a MVP candidate quarterback. So I think, if you can walk away from this loss feeling good, I think you should. So
and so many so many almost sacks, and he's just a
Yeah.
magician in there. And even with the triple teams, Donald's still getting all the pressures he got, and all the other guys that were getting pressure. And so, it's frustrating when you're like, oh, he's right there, and he's just so elusive and so good. So before we kind of move on to the final topic, got to mention our friends at Underdog Fantasy. Head to underdogfantasy.com or the app store. Use our promo code on your first deposit, Rams LAFB. That's all one word, Rams LAFB. Get a match bonus deposit up to $100. So you put in $100, you get $100 free to play with. A lot of fun. The pick'em is great. Pick 2 to 5 players from any sport. You can combine a bunch: NBA, NHL, baseball, obviously football, and just pick the overs and unders, and you win money up to 100 times your money. That fact. So I've had a few fun ones putting up $2 and I turn it into 200. You can do that too at Underdog Fantasy. So underdogfantasy.com, promo code Rams LAFB. Tell them the guys at the Rams Skinny sent you. I never like to spend a lot of time on refs and officiating, but we got to at least mention the missed block in the back call. I know Mahomes thinks that if a call doesn't affect the play, it shouldn't be called, apparently. But I think this one certainly did affect the play, considering it was a streaking potential tackler, and then a block in the back sprung the returner to a touchdown. Your thoughts on the missed call?
Yeah, really unfortunate. I think that it's clear and obvious. You look at the replay, you saw it right away when they showed it right after the play. It was obvious, but I go back to the drive that they couldn't move the ball. That's where I'm going to go back, and I'm going to say you got to go 50 yards. The Ravens gift you just they couldn't do anything. They just gift you the ball back in overtime. All you got to do is kick a field goal. You got to go 50 yards, get in range. Havenstein is kicking for his life. He can hit another one. It's. I don't like when people harp on refs, but this one was a clear and obvious call. But you got to make that tackle too.
Yeah.
Who knows if he would have made that tackle? So woulda, coulda, shoulda. That's what I'm coming down to on that one. And I think that you got to put yourself in a position to not let that decide the game. There's other people. There's 10 other players on that field that need to make that tackle. You don't see punt returns very often for touchdowns. And, that's, there's calls every week. Some go your way. Sometimes you eat the bear and sometimes the bear eats you. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it was a missed call, 100%. No way around it. But you had opportunities, and like you said, you can go back to the Rams Saints NFC Championship game where Saints fans were still probably crying about that missed pass interference call, and Rams fans, and rightfully so, they had the ball, they could have scored, they had the ball in overtime, the Rams had to go score to tie it to overtime. Very similar in this game, right? Rams had to lead at the end of the game. They gave up the score to the Ravens to tie it. They got the ball in overtime. They couldn't do anything with it. So I'm not excusing it. It's a missed call. It was a shame, but the Rams had their opportunities to win it in their own right. Plus also making the play. There was a egregious missed tackle by another special team player there right beside it. So it's unfortunate missed call, but that wasn't, I guess that was the reason they lost, considering that was the scoring play in overtime, but there was much other opportunities for this team. Let's put a bow on this, Skinny. What's your thoughts? Kind of, obviously we'll do our preview show later in the week. Big game, obviously coming up here on Sunday, but what's kind of your thoughts now moving past this game about where this Rams team sits at 6-7?
You look at all the other NFC teams that are at 6-7, and there's a good amount of them. I think the Rams have their destiny most in their own hands. That is to say, it feels like the Falcons, the Bucks, and the Saints. It's like sometimes they show up to a football game and they're gonna F around and win a game. The Rams show up and they look like they're in contention for any game that they're in. And I think, and you look at what just happened with the Packers, didn't play well and lost that game. So I think that their chances to make the playoffs, they're in control of their destiny there, and that's where you want to be. You want to be heading it through December, just chugging and churning, and they look like the best 6-7 NFC team right now.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, and you look at the next 3 games, you get the Commanders, the Saints, and the Giants. So if you're going to make the playoffs, those are must wins, and those are very winnable games based on, how this team has played. And, I think this Rams team, if you're in the NFC, anyone not named the Niners, this Rams team might be the scariest team that you would face in the playoffs, just because they have that kind of F it mentality. They have that, they have a star quarterback, they have a star coach, they have some star skill players, and they have a couple stars on the defensive side of the football. And they're playing overall more consistent. Yes, the Eagles are 10-3, but they've looked pretty bad in their last 2 games, getting blown out by the Niners and the Cowboys. Granted, those are good football teams, but when the Rams have played good football teams, they don't get blown out. And they took the Ravens, the best in the AFC, to the overtime. And so I think big picture, as long as this Rams team does their job over the next 3 weeks, goes into week 18 against San Francisco, and whether that's a win and get in or whether they've already clinched, they might be one of the scariest teams to face in the NFC. And that's not hyperbole. That's not me trying to say it with bias. I just think that where this team's at, they are what their record is. But when you look at the landscape of the NFC outside the Niners, and you could probably start arguing for the Cowboys now, probably start kind of giving them some respect because they've looked pretty damn good down the stretch. But outside of those 2 teams, the Rams might be one of the scarier teams. If they can get hot and go on that 3-game win streak, I think they're a team to be reckoned with.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't say it better myself. Yeah, I had a great point, I think, that I was going to make that was just going to put a nice thing on it, but it's escaped me. But to wrap everything up, you and I are playing in our LAFB playoff fantasy football playoff rematch. We played earlier. You beat me by a couple of points, so a little hotly contested Ryan on Ryan action.
All right, look at that. I like the sound of that. I'm sure many others do as well. A skinny duel, if you will, between the Ryans. So that should be fun. So we'll keep everyone posted on how that looks. But tough loss for the Rams, dropped to 6-7, but still very much alive in the 2023 season. So we'll have Commanders Rams preview for you later in the week. Thank you, everyone, for making the Rams Skinny a part of your day. Please like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. We've loved seeing the growth of this show. Want to keep it growing, keep it going. So thank you all for that. And obviously for all of our Rams coverage, make sure to head to LAFBnetwork.com. Last shout out, betonline.ag. Head to betonline.ag. Use promo code BELIEVE. Gets you a 50% welcome bonus if you want to do some fun sports wagering on any sport of your choosing. And big shout out to Underdog Fantasy as well. For Ryan Skinny T. Anderson, I'm Ryan Dyrud. Everyone have a great week. Talk to you all in the coming days.